The Christmas That Almost Wasn't by Linda Peterson. The empty spot in the front window seemed to call to her reproachfully. Fill me, it said. No, I won't, Betty thought in reply. Not this year. I just can't do it this year. Put up a tree, fill the house with light, when there is only darkness in my heart. No, not this year. Not this year especially. 7 long years of hoping and dreaming of those same hopes dashed time after time as her body betrayed her and refused to carry its precious contents to term. 7 long, empty years while she watched her younger brothers and sisters get married and begin to fill their homes with little ones. And this year, this one was too painful to bear. 2 babies born just months ago, and another on their way. But none of them were hers. No, she wouldn't do it. She didn't care how disappointed Dawn would be. Dawn, who had always looked on the bright side, who still held out hope when hers was gone. This year, Christmas would just go on without them. The trees, the lights, the gaily wrapped presents were for those whose hearts were filled with joy in anticipation of the birth of a special child. They weren't for people like her who had lost hope, whose hearts had grown cold with despair, while the world filled up with little ones bringing light and happiness. But not for them. Still, the empty spot in the front room called to her, filling her with guilt. Even if she couldn't feel it, Dawn, the man who had made her his wife, Dawn, the man who had held her and cried with her through every loss, deserved to have a chance to know the spirit of the season. Even though he had quietly accepted her decision, made for both of them, that this year there would be no Christmas in their home. This year there would be no visits to family and friends, no oohing and eyeing over the new babies, pretending that each newborn sound was not like a dagger to their hearts. No fake Merry Christmas greetings, torn from hearts filled with anything but merriment. Still, the empty spot continued to call to her as the windows of houses all around them filled with gaily decorated Christmas trees. Finally, she could bear the reproachful silence no more. After Dawn left for work, she pulled out the artificial tree they had bought a couple of years before, and the cardboard boxes of ornaments and tinsels. She'd do it for Dawn. She loved him so, and if a decorated tree could bring him a little pleasure, then she'd set aside her own heartache and give him some. It was December 17th, almost too late, really, but she was sure Dawn would consider it to be better late than never. She struggled to assemble the tree, then the string of lights. Dawn had always done these things, but somehow she managed it. Then she began to place the ornaments on the tree. Some of them were from his childhood, others from hers. Others, Dawn, a true child at heart, had bought for her. She still couldn't smile as she hung them on the branches, but maybe, just maybe, she felt a stirring of something. Suddenly, out of the stillness, the phone rang. Who could that be, she thought. The phone rarely rang, and if it did, it was usually someone for Dawn, checking on church assignments or watering turns. Her own mother and sister had long since stopped calling to see how she was doing, put off by her brusque declarations that she was just fine. Hello, she said hesitantly. Mrs. Peterson? A voice on the other end of the phone line said. This is Miss Jones from the adoption agency. I have news. We have a baby for you. What? Betty whispered, almost incoherently. What was the woman saying? It had been 2 long years since they filled out the papers, but the people at the adoption agency said it could take a long time and not to get their hopes up. Just last week, she had talked to Mr. Brown, and he had told her yet again there was no news and that she would need to be patient. A baby, Miss Jones repeated. A baby boy was born last week, and he's yours if you want him. We'd like you and your husband to come pick him up today at St. Salt Lake Hospital. Our director, Mr. Brown, can meet you there. Would 3 p.m. be all right? Yes, of course, Betty replied as light blazed through her heart. Well, then I'm sure you need to get a hold of your husband and let him know. Please call me back after you talk to him. Yes, I'll do that, Betty said excitedly before she hung up the phone. Her mind began to fill with 100 thoughts. Would she be able to reach Dawn at the mine? Should she call her mother, her sister? There was so much to do. They needed diapers and bottles and blankets and clothes and a crib. The baby would need somewhere to sleep, for heaven's sake. As she lifted the receiver to dial the mine, she glanced over at the partially decorated tree. With all that was to be done, she knew it would never get finished. Betty and Dawn showed up at the hospital at 3 p.m. on the dot. They were so excited, but when they entered the maternity wing, there was no baby, only Mr. Brown with an anxious look on his face. Oh, no, please, no. The mother must have changed her mind, Betty thought frantically. But it was nothing so dire. The baby was having difficulty adjusting to the infant formula, and his doctor was unwilling to release him. If they returned in 3 days, even if the issue wasn't resolved, he would let them take him home, Mr. Smith said. The following days flew by as Betty and Dawn got everything ready for their baby. Betty even had time to finish decorating the Christmas tree. Finally, on December 20th, 1957, they brought their new son, Boyd Donald Peterson, home. Even after they did, they spent many nights walking the floor with the screaming infant until the doctor found a formula that his immature digestive system could tolerate. Then he became and stayed his entire life a wonderful, happy, sunny child, as filled with joy and optimism as his father, Don. In time, Boyd was joined by a little brother, Gary, and sisters, Sharon and Judy. All came to Betty and Dawn in the arms of nurses and doctors rather than through Betty's womb. But none could have been more loved. The family enjoyed many Christmases together. The house filled with laughter, and the always decorated tree threatening to topple at the boys' rambunctiousness, till the children grew up and went on to have little ones of their own. Don left this world way too soon at the age of 71, while Betty soldiered on without him for nearly 20 years, as Alzheimer's gradually stole away her memories and her life. In September 2014, Betty left this world, to no doubt to enjoy a wonderful reunion with Dawn, along with the restoration of all of her memories, both sad and sweet, but perhaps none more precious than those of the glorious Christmas that almost was.